Staying on the topic of annoying neighbours, our next story is from Pakistan. The military-run disaster masquerading as a dysfunctional democracy. Its people are suffering record inflation. Something as basic as bread has become unaffordable. One roti costs a staggering 25 Pakistani rupees. Inflation is well above 20%, the highest in South Asia, although things are better than they were a few months ago. Over the last 3 months, Pakistan's inflation rate has fallen by almost 9%, but their pain won't end anytime soon. Normal numbers are not expected till September 2025. That's when inflation could fall to 5%, September 2025. Until that time, the people of Pakistan are going to have it rough. Here's our report.
Pakistan's economy has had a relatively decent month, by Pakistani standards, of course. Today, it received a loan from the International Monetary Fund. The IMF approved an $11 billion loan yesterday, and it has already reached Pakistan's central bank. This is a huge relief for Islamabad, which relies on loans to repay older debts. Debts to China, to Gulf states like the UAE and Saudi Arabia, and even older debts to the IMF. So today's loan was the latest boost for the country, and it caps off a better than usual month. This month began with good news on the inflation front as well. Pakistan's inflation for March was at 20.7%. While most of the world would look at this figure in horror, this is Pakistan. They saw inflation drop to just over 20%. In fact, inflation has been dropping for a few months now. It fell 3 months in a row. It was at 29.7% in December, then 28.3% in January. February saw the best drop when it fell to 23.1%, and then March capped it off with 20.7%. Pakistan's inflation rate fell by 9% in 3 months, which is some much-needed relief for the country. But this doesn't mean that everyone has benefited. Because remember, prices are still sky-high compared to just a few years ago. And this affects those at the bottom of the income chain the most. Let's take the case of the humble roti. It's a South Asian staple, a type of flatbread consumed by everyone. In Pakistan, the humble roti commands a regal price. It now costs 25 Pakistani rupees. That's a whopping 7 rupees per roti in Indian terms. Now, this isn't the cost for a roti at a restaurant or at some fancy hipster back-to-your-roots cafe. No, this is the market cost in Pakistan. It's what everyone has to bear. The people of Pakistan are reeling under these absurd prices. They've had to sit and watch essential goods slowly become unaffordable. People complain about the price of raw materials like flour. The cost of utilities like electricity, water and gas are all up, partially because of their benefactors at the IMF. The IMF issues loans but demands something in return, a removal of subsidies. Pakistan had to scrap its fuel and utility subsidies to get loans from the IMF. As a result, the common people have had to pay for their government's financial mismanagement, quite literally. The situation is so bad that 20% inflation is considered good in Pakistan. It's going to take another year and a half for things to improve. That's what Pakistan's central bank predicts. It thinks the inflation rate will reach 5 to 7% by September 2025. This means the people of Pakistan still have a rough few months ahead of them.